Good morning, friends. On behalf of Banking Quest, I, Tilak Gulati, extend you warm welcome. Today, our topic of discussion is evaluation of banks in India. Whatever banking space we are witnessing nowadays is not complicated. There are very few types of players. We can count them on our fingertips. There are scheduled banks and non-scheduled banks. Within them are commercial banks and cooperative banks. Within commercial banks are public sector banks, private sector banks, rural banks, and foreign banks. Besides, there are new types of players which are payments banks and small finance banks. Reserve Bank of India is the authority which regulates the entire banking sector in India. Whatever this banking space is not very old because Allahabad Bank, the oldest bank which got nationalized, came into existence in 1865, 155 years back. Canara Bank was set up in 1905. When Allahabad Bank, Canara Bank for that matter, many other banks were working in this country, there was no authority to control them. There was no institutions to regulate them because Reserve Bank of India came into existence in 1935 when Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 was enacted. Even at that time also, Reserve Bank was banker to the government and it was the sole authority to issue banknotes. RBI got the regulatory powers in 1949 when Banking Regulation Act 1949 was enacted. Once RBI got the regulatory powers, RBI asked all the banks working in this country to get themselves registered under the second schedule of Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. RBI offered certain benefits also that whichever bank will get itself registered under the second schedule of Reserve Bank of India Act will be able to participate in the clearinghouse system of India and that bank will be eligible to borrow money from Reserve Bank of India. RBI put certain conditions also that those banks will have to comply with the instructions, guidelines, and directives of Reserve Bank of India, and those banks will have to share such information as required by RBI from time to time, and those banks will have to keep deposited permanently with Reserve Bank of India rupees 5 crore of their core capital. Most of the banks at that time agreed to get themselves registered under the second schedule of RBI Act 1934. Those banks are called scheduled banks. Banking in India from independence up to very long time was going on at a very slow pace without much change in it. First big change came in 1969 when Government of India nationalized 14 private banks. Another big change came in 1980 when government nationalized another batch of 6 private banks. These nationalized banks were called public sector banks because shareholding of government of India in these banks were more than 51%. So from independence up to 1980, there were basically two types of banks working in this country. These were development institutions and commercial banks. The names of development institutions are ICICI, IDBI, IFCI, UTI, HDFC, and IDFC. The names of commercial banks are, as we know, State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Bank of Baroda, Union Bank of India, Canara Bank, etc., etc. The working area of development institutions and commercial banks were practically demarcated. Development institutions were in the area of providing loan for infrastructure purposes and for setting up of big projects. Since big ticket advance was required for setting up of infrastructure and project, so uh, these development institutions were giving them term loan which was repayable over a very long period of time. Once the project was set up, the promoters of the projects used to approach commercial banks for meeting their day-to-day requirement, and commercial banks used to give them working capital finance. So the ticket size of working capital finance was very low as compared to the ticket size of infrastructure loan and project loan. But as per regulatory guidelines at that time, development institutions could accept only fixed deposits from the public, whereas commercial banks could accept current deposits, saving deposits, and fixed deposits. So the area of deposit mobilization or the area of resources mobilization as available to the commercial banks was wider than the area of resources mobilization as available to the development institutions. But the area of giving loan as available to the commercial banks were very small as compared to the area is available to the development institutions. So if any bank is having deposits but it is not able to give loan, it is a loss making proposition. So, in order to earn interest And in order to increase the profitability, commercial banks started giving loan for infrastructure purposes and for project loan. So at that time, development institutions approached Reserve Bank of India with the request to allow them to set up a commercial banking subsidiary so that they could also tap current deposits and saving deposits from the public. Agreeing on their request for the first time after independence of India, Reserve Bank of India issued certain banking licenses in the private sector. In 1994, RBI issued license to ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, IDBI Bank, and IndusInd Bank. With the coming of these private banks, an era of competition between private banks and public sector banks started. Since all these private sector banks were high tech from the very beginning, to compete with them, public sector banks were also required to adopt technology. So, with the coming of these private banks, an era of technological advancement also began in the banking sector in India. So from 1994 onward, banking in India was going on at a very fast pace with competition, with technological advancement. Then in 2004, RBI issued two more banking licenses to Kotak Mahindra Bank and Yes Bank. Again in 2015, RBI issued two more banking licenses to IDFC Bank and Bandhan Bank. In 2015 itself, RBI tried to give a new direction to the banking industry in India. RBI issued certain banking licenses to such entities. The working area of them were entirely different from all these commercial banks working in this country. These banks were called differentiated banks. In 2015, in one stroke, RBI issued 11 licenses for setting up of payments banks and 10 licenses for setting up of small finance banks. Why payments banks and small finance banks were called differentiated banks? What is the difference between payments banks, small finance banks, and commercial banks? Payments banks and small finance banks can do all type of banking activity which a commercial banks can do. They can accept deposits, they can remit funds, they can issue drafts, they can park their funds with other banks, they can invest in government securities, they can sell mutual funds, they can sell insurance products. Then where is the difference? Payments banks can accept deposits, but they cannot lend. In deposits also, they can accept only current deposits and saving deposits. Further, balance in one deposit account with payment bank cannot exceed rupees 1 lakh at the end of the day. Means one depositor in his account with payment bank cannot keep more than rupees 1 lakh. Whereas small finance banks, they can accept deposits, they can lend also. But the ticket size of loan cannot exceed rupees 25 lakhs. Means to one borrower, small finance banks cannot give more than 25 lakh rupees. Whereas commercial banks, they can accept deposits, they can lend also without any limit. There is no restrictions on commercial banks in accepting deposit from one depositor as the restriction is applicable over payments banks. There is no restrictions for commercial banks of giving loan to one borrower as the restriction is applicable over small finance banks. Of course, while giving loan, commercial banks have to ensure that they have sufficient regulatory capital with them. And the difference is that for payments banks, there is no stipulation of priority sector lending. Since they cannot lend, so the question of priority sector lending does not arise. As we all know, commercial banks have to provide 40% of their total loan portfolio to priority sector. This stipulation for small finance banks have been increased to 75%. Means small finance banks have to give 75% of their total loan portfolio to priority sector. So this is how the banking has evolved from independence up to this time. But for the last 3 4 years, we have witnessed a new change in the banking sector in India. That is a consolidation of public sector banks. Government of India has consolidated 27 public sector banks into 12 banks. In 2017, all the subsidiaries of State Bank of India were merged with State Bank of India. In 2019, Vijaya Bank and Dena Bank were merged with Bank of Baroda. In 2020, many other banks were merged together to make bigger entities. Oriental Bank of Commerce and United Bank of India have been merged with Punjab National Bank. Syndicate Bank has been merged with Canara Bank. Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank has been merged with Union Bank of India. Allahabad Bank has been merged with Indian Bank. While announcing the consolidation of public sector banks, Government of India has made its intention very clear that the government wants only three types of public sector banks in this country. One type of public sector banks will be having strong national presence and global reach, means they will be of international character. And the type of public sector banks will strengthen their national presence. They will be national banks. And another type of public sector banks will strengthen their regional focus. They will be regional level banks. Means international bank, national bank, and regional level banks. Government has also categorized these banks. International banks will be State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank, Canara Bank, Union Bank of India, and Indian Bank. National banks will be Bank of India, Central Bank, and whereas regional level banks will be Indian Overseas Bank, UCO Bank, Bank of Maharashtra, and Punjab and Sindh Bank. Though government has not specifically described the working area of these three types of banks, but government intention is that the global level banks will work for projects and infrastructure financing and will be having overseas presence, whereas national level banks will meet the needs of SME sector, thus aiding Make in India, where regional level banks will concentrate on retail and priority sectors, tax collection, miscellaneous functions such as financial inclusion and subsidy distribution. Government has further clarified that this process of consolidation will rationalize the demand on government finances for capital infusion. All, as we all know, public sector banks are continuously demanding capital from the Government of India, and Government of India is infusing capital in them. From where these funds come to the government? These are tax collected from the Indian citizens. These are the national resources. If these national resources are not optimally utilized, this is a wastage of national resources. Instead of providing capital in all public sector banks proportionately, in my opinion, this capital should be bifurcated into developmental capital and survival capital. Main chunk of capital should be provided to the developmental capital. In this, global level banks should be sufficiently capitalized since they have to compete at the international level. Their capital structure should be much above what is prescribed under Basel norms. Whereas national level banks, their capital structure can be what is minimum prescribed under Basel norms. Regional level banks, their capital structure should not be linked to the Basel norms, since they have to work for financial inclusion and government guarantees also there. Even if no capital is provided to them, even then they can work efficiently to fulfill the social welfare agenda of the Government of India. So, friends, this is what I wanted to discuss with you. So, friends, my request to all of you, please get yourself registered under our website www.bankingquest.com. This website has been specifically made for the bankers. At Banking Quest, we has been envisioned by a group of experts and leaders in the field of banking and finance to groom next generation bankers. So thank you very much, friends. Thanks a lot.